I like to burn when God burned. I like to burn when it's dry. I really don't care the month. Because if you burn at different months throughout the year, you get maximum diversity of species. So I get this email all the time, hey, should I burn on March 15th or April 15th? No idea. When's it dry? When can you get the fire to carry? Fred's much smarter than me. He's a doctor, he's a really smart guy. And Fred, we have a little local deer co-op I mentioned today, and Fred will do this thing in our local deer co-op, little private Facebook page. Hey, I'm going to burn, I don't remember all the days, but I'm just pulling out March 10th. But if it's raining, we're going to burn March 17th. If it's raining, we're going to, Fred just lists about 6 days. And they all meet at a restaurant, and Fred buys everyone breakfast, and they go burn all day. How many years you been doing that, Fred?
30 years.
30 years. Fred didn't pay for labor, he pays for breakfast. I'm out there paying for labor and overtime. He's much smarter than me. Fred's got this figured out, man, and Fred's a master burner. You burn when it's dry, within a window, right? Fred and I neither one burn necessarily right during peak fawning, nesting season, but if that's my only window, yeah, I'll burn 100 acres out of 800 acres because the overall gain is way more beneficial than taking out a couple fawns or turkey nests. I mean, it sounds so cruel, but that's just life. That's just the way it works. So I'm a big believer in burning when it's dry.
Dry and low humidity.
Low humidity. And there's a trade-off there, right? Ransom back here, raise your hand, Ransom, because not many people know you. Here.
Excuse that way.
Yeah, okay. Ransom's address, I don't know. Ransom tried to burn here, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago, Ransom? Last weekend. And it was too humid, the plants were too green, didn't carry very well, did it? Daniel and I'm not picking on Ransom, Daniel and I have done that bunch, and you walk your fanny off on these hills, just spreading diesel and gas everywhere trying to get it to carry. And, after about 4 hours, you go, well, this was stupid. I'm kind of hard-headed, so. The only thing burning is right where you drop the diesel fuel. And you think it's going to carry, and you look back, and it's already out by the time you get 50 yards later. So
Grant, real quick, I picked Justin's brain last night before dinner, and he gave me, I'll probably let you take it from here, but he said that you shouldn't be burning until the temperature is greater than humidity. Never heard that before, but I started looking at it last night on the internet. It's pretty ingenious. So if you want to enlighten the crowd, I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, well, especially like when you get in June. I mean, you can get in some other places where you're really dominated by fuel, like where y'all cut the cedar. You might need to tweak that because you might intend on keeping it cool. But oftentimes when we're trying growing season burns, we won't even mobilize a crew, or we anticipate the crew getting there at a certain time. But if you look at your daily temperature, where you are that minute, and your relative humidity, you really cannot get any of those growing season burns to work until your humidity is higher than your relative humidity. They cross.
Sorry, temperature.
I'm sorry, temperature. Temperature's got to be higher than your relative humidity, right? So oftentimes in the morning, you'll start and you might be 60 degrees with an 80% relative humidity, right? First thing in the morning, well, it's not going to work. You've got to get deeper in the day, and as that temperature rises, the relative humidity is dropping, and so after that intersection, that's about the time we actually get to the field. And then we wait another hour or so, and then you can actually do something. That's assuming you have fuel that'll burn and you haven't taken rain, 4 hours before. There's a whole lot of other things going on, but that is one of our rules of thumb, is looking at where those two swap.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. Great thing. Yeah. Burning is an incredible tool. To Justin and Fred's point, it's a big part of what we do. It's a huge part. And if you're gonna burn, do it right. Get some drip torches. I see guys that got the little quart butane thing. They're down here trying to do this. That's hot, folks. You're gonna burn your leg off if you turn that the wrong way. And pay attention to what you're doing. And a drip torch, Daniel and I and Evan burn almost 100 acres over here.
Yeah.
2 ridges that way, I guess. Ridge and a half that way. And being the gracious guy I am, I put Evan and Daniel on the side the wind is blowing into. I thought Daniel was sunburned the next day. And I burned the side that, it was taking more or less, swirls in the Ozarks all the time, but more or less was carrying the fire away because I'm the only guy on there on almost a mile long fire line. So I'm just all day long just going back and forth, make sure it hadn't, jumped somewhere. And we had a long day. We got out there 10 at night or something like that. But people always ask me how much labor stuff. Labor's an issue for all of us, but we burned 100 acres under the right conditions, and we're walked by a portion of that today. But 3 of us burned 100, and we were tired. I don't remember the numbers. I think you walked 10 or 11 miles, something like that day.
I think that day was 14.
14. And I'm old, so I don't remember. I walked 7 or 8.
3 or 4?
Yeah, right. Evan did a half mile, dude. And this is real world. So we were clearing out a food plot area. We'll see here in a little bit. And we had line built and ready to rock. We don't wait till that day to go line. We're waiting on the day to burn. We're already ready to burn. And we get there thinking we are in good shape. We're always looking for maybe a tree that fell the night before or something like that. And the guys clearing the food plot had pushed a big dozer deck pile right to the burn area. And it was dry and windy. It was probably 15, 20 miles an hour, something like that, Daniel?
Yeah.
And that caught on fire. We were not counting on a huge amount of fuel. So really, Daniel and I did a lot of burn while Evan sat most of the day, right word, and watched that pile because it was throwing embers. It jumped 2 or 3 times, didn't it? It jumped, not too big. He got on top of it. So you have all these unexpected things happen when you're burning. Now, we survived, it was fine, but we weren't counting on X tons of fuel right on the very line. I mean, on the line. So you just have to adapt and go. Yeah. Any questions about fire? Drip, everyone know what a drip torch is? Yes? Okay. Yeah. Use a drip torch.
How about, a fire when you're natural forage, but during hunting season, right, the natural forage is probably at its minimum, right? That's where your food plot should come in, right? And so that's why that's it. Isn't that the real advantage of having the combination?
Well, that is a great one. We, Daniel and I really like high-to food plots, so we talk about them all the time. And you go in the middle of 50 acres of timber with nothing there, and you've got a high-to food plot blend like we have, Colton helped create, that is right in the middle of that timber, and all of a sudden everything else is called hardening off, that vegetation senescing, shutting down for the winter, and your food plot's coming on strong. You will see, if you're any kind of hunter and you haven't disturbed a deer in that area, you're going to see and kill deer there. High-yield food plots in this country, where we're acorn driven, is one of our big techniques, and we're going to establish, we hope, about 10 more this summer.
I just wanted to say, for those who aren't comfortable or been on prescribed burns before, just a few weeks ago at the Department of Forestry in Virginia, I went out and they had a kind of a class bringing the landowners to come and burn along with them. Really helpful, kind of build confidence and maybe look into your local state forestry or whatever.
A lot of states have good training. South Carolina has good training. Georgia has good training. We welcome volunteers here. We have people come. And they don't have to really be burning, just sit in Daniel's pocket or my pocket and enjoy the day. And be able to walk 14 miles.
What is some of the necessary equipment for prescribed burning?
Eric works on some land in Oklahoma, neat property. So we talk about drip torches. We wear Nomex. It's a fire retardant clothing. Have high quality, not the $19 radios. We got, I don't know what they are, $300, $500, $800 a piece radios. So we can get over the hills and way over the hills if we need to. Radio vest, so you're not losing your radio. Our radio's right here, we just do that. I've tried the earpieces, that doesn't work. We're pulling them out on limbs, that doesn't work for us, so we just thumb it. Good boots, really good heavy boots. We have really rocky soil. You don't want a synthetic boot. If that baby gets on fire, it's gonna melt to your skin. And you're gonna go see some surgeons. You want a good leather boot, something like that. Yeah, if we're burning 2 acres of grass somewhere, I'm not that worried about it. If we're doing a real fire, I'm all suited up and rocking. People burn without Nomex all the time. They do great. My fire training I worked for the Bureau of Land Management in Nevada. I was a volunteer, just like Braden, wherever Braden is out there, a summer when I was an undergrad. And it had to be really dry. In the West, if you have a big snow, I can already predict what's going to happen out West this year. I can tell you with 100% accuracy. They had great big snow. That means you're going to have a lot of plant growth. And then it's going to get dry, and there's going to be some lightning strikes, and there's going to be fire this year. That's an easy one to call. Unless it's just a really wet summer, there's gonna be fire this year. But I was young and dumb, and I was pretty fit for pre-transplant, so they stuck me on the heli-tac team. And it's called initial attack. So someone rancher, someone satellite, whatever, picks up fire, a pilot and 5 guys, it was guys back then, get on a helicopter and you go find that fire, and you got so many hours, depending on where it is, how close it is to ransom, to put it out. And if you don't put it out, then they got to mobilize the big crews. And it was fun. I mean, it was fun. It was excitement. I couldn't do it now, not physically able. But at the time, man, it was kind of a badge of honor to be on that helicopter. It was fun. I loved it. I have great memories of it. And if you couldn't put it out, it was almost like shameful. Well, you guys failed. And sometimes it'd be a major rager when you got there. The wind shifted, and all you were doing was running from it. You weren't trying to put it out. You're trying to keep from getting put out. So I got that training. So 10-acre fire, 100-acre fires, and I like 100,000-acre fire. But I would get experience through a guy like Fred or whoever, and learn what you're doing before you strike one up on your own. Fire should be respected, but it's a great tool. And good clothing, the right ignition. But I'd say above all that, the most important thing for us wildlife guys doing fire and gals is have your fire line already made. Your fire should be so safe that you just have no concerns just getting out. You should just go into that fire so comfortable, because the real work is before the fire. The day of the fire should be fun. You're lighting, you're watching, you're seeing what's burning, not burning. The day of the fire should be fun. It's the hard work is carrying a backpack blower or whatever you're using to make the fire line. In hardwood habitat, we use backpack blowers a lot. We're just blowing the leaves away, just moving fuel. I don't like a dozer making fire line in hardwoods, because that almost always becomes an erosion ditch. Some states demand that. Georgia, South Carolina have forestry services that make fire lines pretty inexpensively, thinking they're saving those guys from burning the community down, but they always end up being an erosion ditch. So I don't like that in steep country. And we burned 50 couple acres over there this year, and the McBrides helped us a bunch. It was a big old line right next to a bunch of high dollar homes. So we had them take their Motrin, which we'll show you later, and create us is it 10 foot, what is it? 10, 11 foot? 8 to 10 foot line through there.
Side to side.
Because it was thick, gnarly saplings.
A lot of smaller thin.
Yeah, and it was going to be tough blowing through all that, and a lot of greenbrier, just a lot of greenbrier. And so they made us a line, and we went back in and just blew the duff out of the way. Anything that was ignitable, just you could walk it quickly. And it also allowed us, because we're right next to a development, 100 yards from houses at places.
Or less.
Or less.
They got a good view.
They got a good view, yeah.
You had the wind blowing away.
Yeah, I had the wind blowing away. And again, being the brave man I am, I stuck Daniel and Evan on that side. Burn the house down, I'm going to Jamaica real quick. But anyway, no. And I worked this side, and which on that day, the wind was blowing towards me. And so anyway, and it was a safe fire, and I'll let Daniel tell the rest of it. We had no problems, no big issues, nothing like that. We're seeing great burn, did what we thought it was going to do, but we had done the work with their help, because that was going to be a tough line to build ahead of time. We did the work ahead of time. We went in that fire fully confident, even with just 3 people on a pretty sizable fire. And a tough fire, because it wasn't, a 50-acre square is much different than 50 acres that's a mile long. There's a lot of line to watch on that. So, a circle is the smallest border per acre you can get. And every time you get off that circle, you have more line to watch per unit area. So we have a lot of line to watch. And it worked out fine. No big issues. A little hotter in some places, not as hot in other places, but when you got 3 people and you're burning that much, you just get it done. And I wanted to burn that a little cooler, knowing next time when I reduce all that cedar fuel, we can safely burn it even hotter. So we do that a lot. Our first burn is basically a fuel reduction burn and get some habitat value out of it in failed cedar areas. And our second burn, we can work more on that habitat.
Just go, and if we see an area that's heavy in saplings, cedars, and we know that, like, it's not a quality oak in there, we'll back off even further and send
Yeah.
a hotter fire through. So
Yeah.
we're always looking forward to, can we get a hot fire through there, or do we need to tighten it back up and send a cooler fire through?
We're painting, we're using our drip torches as a paintbrush on the canvas. What do we want to accomplish each half acre or whatever out there? Not everyone can do that. You know, we're in this business, so it's what we do, but not every crew can do that. This one at a time. It takes a lot of time to paint a nice painting, to paint a masterpiece. It takes a lot of time. And sometimes you got paint over it, you know, do it again. Fred's laughing. I've done saying, we won't go by it today probably, but we were burning it again, 50, 60 acres, heavy fuel, dry cedar, heavy fuel. And Daniel and a couple of guys on one side, and I was on the other side, if I remember right, maybe someone else ordered, I don't remember, a couple years ago. And I'm more aggressive than Daniel. So we started our little fire in the middle. There's a food plot right in the middle, and rung it because it's all down different. A food plot's on the ridge top, of course, so the wind's better, and we're just letting it back down, and it's slow. Oh my gosh, it's slow. So anyway, I lied a little more, and I remember this. I radioed Daniel, said, hey, I'm gonna take some bigger bites. You know, I mean, when Daniel's a super polite guy. I mean, you just can't imagine how polite Daniel is. So he's like, okay, which always means, are you sure you know what you're doing? So, yeah, I got you. So I like some bigger bites, and the wind changes a little bit. I ain't no big deal. I've been burning for 30 years. And I like some more big bites. And somehow, Daniel and I crossed the ridge. I don't really remember why we crossed the ridge. Just the way we met up, or someone needed water or something. So I'm on the other side now, which is more in the shade and calmer. And man, I'm taking some bites. I'm trying to get it burned. I'm hearing a lot of radio. I'm not really paying attention because I got a lot of ground to cover. So. And I hear Daniel, go here. I'm like, Daniel needs help? No, I think we got it. Okay. I'll take some more bites down through there. Daniel take it from there. We killed some trees.
Yeah. So Grant was biting it into the shade, so it was really laying down, and the wind was good on that. He was kind of on a slope, but when it came over the slope, the wind shifted, and then it came down and started pushing into this area that was receiving a lot of sunlight. And when that wind shifted and that sunlight, the fire behavior changed because that fuel and that humidity was different, and it just pushed into an area. And what happened was, it actually jumped over. We had just, our interior road was our fire break, and we had felled cedars on the other side with heavy fuel. And it jumped over, and I just happened to come around the corner and saw some smoke and ran up there and was stomping it out. And we were about 6 inches away from hitting the felled cedar, and if it would have hit that, we would have been fighting a little more fire, but it all worked out.
And it's beautiful habitat now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's stunning. You got to have some hot fire. And it was, I don't know, Daniel, 2-3 acres out of 50 acres.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a Yellowstone fire or something. It was a little excitement. And that's going to happen from time to time. Wind shifts, you know, stuff like that. But that was my fault. But it's also, you know, you go through it, won't hardly carry. It's burning good. And that humidity, as soon as it starts up, it's not a slow over an hour. As soon as it starts up, you're hustling because your burning doesn't go very well. And you're trying to black out areas so you don't have to nurse it all out. No, it'll just crawl and creep, and I don't like to leave it going. So we face that. You got to get it done before a certain time of day. And we get into hustle mode in the afternoon, trying to get it done, laid down.
Can you talk about fuel load as far as, say you're going into a timber stand, what are you looking for as far as, what are the great conditions as far as fuel load to burn, or to say not yet, or where you know that it may be a hot fire versus a cooler fire?
I'm going to say Fred and Justin and Daniel and I burned so much, Justin burned on other people's property, so it's probably a little tighter than we are. I don't take all the measurements and stuff I used to do. You can weigh little fine sticks. There's all the stuff you can really do. I don't have to do that anymore. Are the leaves crunchy? Like the other day, Daniel and I think about doing the burns, man. Just happened less than a week ago or so. I don't know if it'll carry or not. So we out in the yard. I just mowed the yard a few days before, and I picked up some dead grass on top. And see how this burns. It wouldn't even carry. We're down there trying to make dead grass that's been mowed 2 days trying to burn. Well, there's no need trying to go and burn 10. If that's not gonna burn in full sunshine, there's no chance out here it's gonna burn. So are the leaves dry? Will it carry? Blow your line, burn a yard the day ahead or something like that before you get all the guys out there. And see if it'll carry. How aggressive does it carry? And then what's your mission? Am I trying to kill all the trees? That's a valid mission. Do I want to save all the valuable oaks or valuable trees in there? That's a mission. Do I need in between? I want to kill all the saplings, or set them back anyway. They're 2 or 3 inches at the base. A 3-inch tree is tough to kill. A lot of times if you're killing 3-inch trees, you're killing 8-inch trees. Inch and less is a different story. Justin, do you have anything you wanted to add on that?
Well, I think there's been a lot of good points made about burning. I mean, it is art. There's the science part, but there's the art part. You kind of trust your gut. The more you do, the better you get, because you got all these pieces of experience to kind of fill in. But if you're looking for some data, most states now have RAWS stations, remote access weather stations, and so you can pull that down. And every county in every state in the country, you can pull the data for the fire weather forecast. So if you go to NOAA and you Google up NOAA fire weather forecast, it goes, and it's not just like pulling up AccuWeather or WeatherBug. I mean, they are giving you very specific data. They're really giving firefighters very specific data. We just happen to be firelighters, not firefighters, but you're looking at the same values, and they have just loads and loads of data. You can go in there and you can look at where your relative humidity is going to be. You can look at KBDI in your portion of the county. Oftentimes there's just reams of data. And I was saying at the very beginning, a lot of that probably doesn't mean anything to you. And you go out and you do a little bit more and you say, well, this is the data I had and these are the results I got in this fuel type, and that starts building that experience base, and you start figuring out, what are these things. And there's a lot of lookouts. It is like flipping a light switch, the fact that it goes from not burning and then all of a sudden it's burning. There's not a whole lot of in between. And those are the same kind of days where if you start cooking 6-inch trees, you are cooking 8s. And if you're cooking 8s, you're cooking 12s. And, there is a big difference in there. There's some rules of thumb. We like to tell folks if there's a duff or grass layer at the bottom, or, when we look at stands of timber or stands of brush or in between, you kind of have the forest floor, and then you've got brush that's, 2, 3, 5 feet tall, and you've got your mid-story, and sometimes you have a larger mid-story and then an overstory. And one of the things I tell people is, whichever layer we're consuming, we're going to kill the layer above it, right? So if we're consuming and I say kill, when I say kill, I mean top kill. I don't mean permanently kill. I mean just like you mowed it off with a lawnmower. So if you control that duff layer down at the bottom, well, then I'm going to top kill the brush. If I consume the brush layer, I'm going to top kill one of the mid-story levels. And you can watch it as it's progressing, especially in summertime burns where we're in full leaf. If you find a light leaf species or light seeded species like a maple or even a gum, and you watch that fire go through, now you might not be able to see what's scorched, but if you look right behind it, you'll see which of the leaves were out in full, and after the fire passes, within minutes, you'll see them hanging. You've knocked it down to that height. So if you go out there and you see your fires getting too hot because you're seeing that height, well, then you need to back up, or you need to say, hey, we need to be content with just a back fire. And a lot of times we'll assign guys on the flanks and we'll say, hey, we're going to run all backfires today. I want you to keep your flank just moving 20 feet in front of the backfire just for a safety issue. And other times we may say, hey, we like what the flank is giving us. We don't want to head fire, but we need more production. So we'll strip directly into the wind. And so what are called strip flank fires. We cover lots and lots of ground, but it's all the flank fires. There's no head fires involved. I'm on the conservative side. I'd rather have to burn something 2 or 3 times to kill what I want rather than get it in one big bite. And so we don't do a lot of ringing. We can, unless we're doing site prep burns where we're just completely starting an area over. But there's so many factors, humidity and wind speeds and aspect and sunlight, and it's painting a picture. But I think if you just start conservative and don't try to bite too much at one time, then the mistakes stay minimal. You know, it's easy to say, hey, we got 2 bonus acres, you know, no problem, and it looks great. And that's easy. You know, you're not burning if you haven't had escapes, right? It's just gonna happen. But just keep them to a minimum. You know, we don't want to be the folks that the fire that burned the county up is named after. You know, none of us in here want that to happen, nor does our insurance carrier. So, you know, take small bites.